Hi everybody, Lori here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a couple of adorable projects to share with you featuring some of the new April release by Waffle Flower, and they have a gorgeous new postage theme coming here. It's the Postage Collage envelope stencil as well as the Postage Collage envelope die, and I'm going to be using these two on my first card. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a panel of Hammermill white cardstock. It's just cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and I'm die cutting this envelope collage die right into the center of it. So I'll take that off camera and run it through my die cutting machine, and then you can see here how it die cuts all those like envelope flaps. But now we're going to add some color using the stencil. And it's a 2-part layering stencil. So one just does the envelope flap, and then one does the bottom of the envelope as well as the little hearts on the flap. And that is what I use to line up the stencil. I use the little hearts in the stencil lined up with the die cut hearts on the cardstock, and it makes it easy to line up. I use Post-it tape to hold it all down, and I'm starting to blend. You know, I want to get as much color. So I'm using pink lemonade. I think I use all Concord 9th inks on this. I just felt like pulling them out. And I do have a Simon Says Stamp blender brush here. I just grabbed one that looked like a similar pink. So I'm starting with one, and I do ink up the base of the envelope and then kind of fade it to nothing at the top. So I get a bunch of color in a corner or at a bottom, and then I just kind of blend it to where there's almost nothing. And that gives you the gradient love. I love the gradient love. Here we have, what was that? Grapefruit. I believe that was Grapefruit, Concord 9th ink. And then here on this one, doing a little Buttercup. You know I'm going in rainbow order, and just getting most of that color down at the bottom and just blending it up till there's nothing left. And there you have that gradient yellow. Okay, next, and also by the way, I'm just using some scratch paper. Just like I have a whole bunch of scratch paper. Whenever I get mail I don't need, or something gets printed out, or kids have a school paper, I fold it and I save it for projects like this when I need scratch paper. And that's what you call being thrifty and being nifty. Now here I'm using sea glass ink, but because my blender brush was so dark, I didn't really get sea glass color. And that sometimes happens when you don't have a specific brush for all your inks, but it's okay. Okay, now I'm taking a teeny tiny little detail brush and blending Poppy on all those little itty bitty hearts. And right now it looks fabulous. Nice and vibrant and poppy, and I love how it looks. But then when I go to blend the color on the flaps, it does get a little bit muddy on some of the colors. So in the end, I ended up using a little heart enamel sticker. But if you were careful, you could keep your hearts nice and poppy. But here's like where I'm adding the color to the flaps. So this is stencil number 2. And then what my thought was, so I blended the base of this envelope with a light ballet or pink lemonade. So I'm going to do the flap in a slightly darker pink shade. So I did Honeysuckle. Here I blended the envelope with Grapefruit. So now I'm blending the flap with Sorbet. If I forget to mention a color, I'll have everything linked in the description box. So I'm trying to do a darker shade of what I used on the bottom of the envelope. Does that make sense? So it kind of gives you a two-tone look, but staying within the same color family. Here I'm doing Stardust. Now here's the problem. When I start blending Stardust over that poppy heart, it can get a little muddy. And here I'm blending Parsley. Again, if that goes over that red heart, in my personal opinion, which it might not bother you, especially here with the blue, I'm using Oceanside, and I'm going over that heart, and I was like, my heart kind of sank. This is where at the end of the card I'll add the enamel heart stickers. Here I'm blending the last flap with blueberry ink. It's a very rich blueberry color. I'm trying to avoid the heart if I can. So I think if you're strategic and try to avoid the heart, another thing you could do is maybe go over it with Nouveau drops or something. Here I pulled out an oldie but a goodie. This is the Postage Collage coloring stencil, and I wanted to do that kind of postage dash detail around the border. I've been wanting to do this forever, and I thought now's the time. Okay, so I'm just going to do just the traditional red and blue kind of postage look. So I'm going around the whole perimeter with poppy ink take this off, put on the next stencil, and that's going to give you the dashed lines in between the red ones. And this time I'm going in with blueberry. Okay, so I love how this looks. There's a lot of color going on because you got the rainbow envelopes, and then now you've got the red and blue dash, but I'm not mad about it. I mean, for me, color is key, and I think it all works together for a very happy color, but you could certainly customize these colors, make it more earth tone, make it more pastel-y. Definitely customize this for Christmas time. So many options. I wanted to give you a little peek. So this is what it looks like the last couple days in Minnesota. I find this to be offensive, but it was beautiful. And I will say my dog Hank loved it. Here's a quick peek at my craft room. A lot of people asked for an update. I don't have much to report, okay, but I will show you my closet because this is working. This organization, it might not look great, but it is working for me. I have the bins, I've got the things. It still could be neater and tidier. Here's my little ink carousel. There's my little Hank the Tank, always by my side. But the snow, can we talk about the snow? People say it's gonna melt because, you know, it's April. But right now I'm looking out to huge piles. Although it's not very cold, it's just white. The kids had 2 snow days in a row, so they're not complaining. By the way, for the sentiment, I used one of my favorites. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's called the Sentiment Editions 2. And I just love those elongated, kind of scripty handwritten sentiments. I stamped hello with black ink on a white cardstock and then used the coordinating die. Here I'm using some score tape just around the perimeter to adhere this to a white card base. The reason I only wanted adhesive around the perimeter is so that I could lift up these flaps. So this is almost like an interactive card. If you wanted to, you could tuck some things in there, like maybe some cash. If it was a gift, you could tuck a little note. A lot of fun things. I'm not going to do any of that. I just wanted them to kind of lift up and get a little shadow going. I like the look of the popped up flap. Here's where I'm adding these enamel dots. These are by Concord 9th. Maybe another brand carries enamel hearts, but I think they add, I mean, it looked good without it too. You could probably go without it. You know, I'm always going to add extra. I like the shiny. So maybe if I had some red Nuvo drops, you could probably do it with that or something like that. I don't know. I'm not just kind of spitballing here. And then I added some little foam squares behind the flaps so that they wouldn't get smushed down. This card is finished. I love how it looks. It's still very simple. Lots of color, lots of white space, and I love the flaps kind of tipped open. I'm going to do one more with another new die set. I love it. Postage Collage Mini Seals die set. And I'm going to pair it with the Oversized Postage Matching die, which is an older die set, but I love it for the border. Here I'm making a card base with a panel of, I believe this is powder cardstock by Concord 9th. And I'm going to use the Oversized Postage Matching die to cut out of white and then also some Buttercream cardstock. Look at this big oversized postage background. I think it's such a great mat for anything, but especially for this Postage Collage Mini Seals die set. So this allows you to cut a little envelope with an envelope liner, and then it has some greenery and some foliage, which I'm cutting here of a mixture of sprout and parsley cardstock. And then there aren't really flower dies, but there are flowers on the stems. And so I went ahead and die cut them, and I'm going to trim off just the blooms and adhere them onto the green stems. Now for the envelope, I did the envelope out of some Stardust cardstock, and then I'll do the liner out of a little bit of pattern paper. And I'm trying to line this up so it kind of looks symmetrical in the plaid design. I think adding an envelope liner just really zhuzhes up the inside of this envelope. You can just kind of slip it right in and add a contrasting pattern or contrasting color, and then I'll add a little bit of adhesive so that stays in place. So now you have your little envelope, and then you could adhere whatever you want to adhere into it. I'm going to adhere a bunch of greenery and blooms. So first I'm adhering the Buttercream panel onto that white postage backer. And then I'm using Barely Art glue and just putting a little bit on the base of the stems and tucking them in willy-nilly. I didn't really have a plan. This always makes me feel like I'm a florist or something. But you just try to wanna disperse the greenery evenly. And I feel like maybe it's borderline if I added too much, because I think simpler is better. Another idea I had is to cut out stems out of vellum. I think that would look gorgeous. So you can see here I use the scissors to carefully trim the blooms and adhere them onto the stems. And I try to do, pops of different color. We have some bright red blooms, honeysuckle, buttercream, and ballet slipper, have all the colors. Now for a sentiment, I'm using the new Simply Said stamp set. It's a little mini with all these just perfect little handwritten sentiments. I did Just a Note, VersaFine Onyx Black ink, popping up this oversized postage background onto the powder panel, and then a little bit of foam tape. I'm using the Big Mama foam tape by Simon's Stamp, popping up the envelope with all that foliage. Since I had the enamel hearts out, I thought, why not stick one there? Because I'm on a roll. And then I decided, here's the Nuvo drops, and they're white. And I thought, I'll add a little white dot to the centers of my blooms. Now this is a gamble if it was the right decision or not. I think looking back, I might have left it plain. But once you start adding Nuvo drops, I'll tell you what, it's hard to stop. It's really hard to stop. And then I added them to these almost look like stamen or something on these blooms. And I knew it when I was doing it. When you're doing it and you've overdone it, but you're too far in. You're too far in. But okay, so we have a lot of little teeny white dotted details to the blooms. Love it. Leave it. What do you think? I don't know, but I love how this card turned out. It's clean. I love the foliage popping out of the envelope. Check out Waffle Flower's new April release. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.